Hi guys, and welcome back to another YouTube video. In this video I'll be going through my tips for round 23 as well as reviewing my round 22 tips. Going through I guess how I did. I ended up going a 6 for 9, which wasn't the best week compared to the rest of tippers. I mean, I did go for the upset with Geelong over Collingwood, which would have obviously lost to a lot of people, as well as picking against Carlton as well. That would have been a little bit, but I mean, other than that, I mean, a lot of people probably got 7 or 8, which sort of sucks. I don't think many would have seen Hawthorn beating Western Bulldogs, but Hawthorn are playing really well at the moment, so maybe that needs to be taken into consideration next, I guess, in the future. But before we get into the video, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload, and let's get into the video. So as you can see here, with the Collingwood game against Geelong, I picked Geelong by 9 and Collingwood ended up winning by 8, so I was 17 points off there, which isn't even that, not that bad for an overall thing, but obviously picking against Collingwood was a bad tip. North against Essendon, I said Essendon by 24 and they won by 9, so I was 15 points off, so I was almost the same margin off in this game, but I got the team right. Swans against Gold Coast, I said Swans by 29 and they ended up winning by 24, so 5 points off there, so that was a really good tip. Brisbane against Adelaide, I said Brisbane by 24 and they ended up winning by 6, so I was 18 points off there. That's actually at the moment the worst tip of the round in terms of margin off the actual margin, so even though I got the team right. And then we go to Carlton against Melbourne. I said Melbourne by 12 and it ended up being Carlton by 4. So I was 16 points off there. So not even the worst tip there. I seem to be within 10 to 20 points in a lot of these tips. I said Freo by 15 and yeah, that was a bad one. So Freo ended up winning by 101 and I thought it was a derby. So I thought West Coast would provide something more, but they really didn't. They just were nothing. So for them to lose by that margin is really poor, and I was 86 points off there, so that's pretty much going to be all of the margin for the round in that little pocket there. Western Bulldogs against Hawthorn, I ended up getting this tip wrong. I said Western Bulldogs by 19 and Hawks won by 3, so I was 22 points off there, which isn't the best tip, obviously. St Kilda against Richmond, say St Kilda by 13 and they ended up winning by 36, so I was 23 off there. St Kilda just provided a lot more resistance, I guess. Max King, I think, kicked 5 or 6. I didn't necessarily watch this game, but I just remember looking at some stats about it, and St Kilda just ran the game pretty much. And then pretty similar to this, Port Adelaide ran the game against GWS, I said by 8 points, and they ended up winning by 51, so I was 43 off there. So a lot of my margin actually came in the, pretty much all my tips that were bad came in the Saturday afternoon or Saturday night games and the Sunday games. So yeah, I had a good start to the week, and then the latter half, the last 5 games, is where my margins would have blown out. Even though I got, I got two of the last 5 wrong, so I still got 3 or 5 in the last 5. But just this margin in this game here, as well as the Port GWS game, sort of blew out a little bit. But anyway, it's still a decent round. 6 out of 9 isn't the worst. And moving on to the second last round of the year, you have Collingwood versus Brisbane, dead even odds at the moment, and I think that's pretty fair with Collingwood having some injuries. Brisbane seem to have replaced Ashcroft well with McCluggage at the moment, and filling in, if pretty sure McCluggage was still playing, filling in McCluggage's role really well. Collingwood, obviously the injuries are hampering them. No Darcy Moore. So I do think that Brisbane have a really good shot at this game. Do I think that Collingwood's going to... It's going to be a coin toss. Honestly, this one, I could see it going either way. I do think that Collingwood have a chance to wrap up the minor premiership in this round and wrap up that number 1 seed, I guess. So do I think Collingwood's going to win? I think Collingwood does win against the Lions, and I think they'll win by I think it will be a tight one. I think they'll win by 13. So I'm going to pick Collingwood by 13 points. Richmond against North. Richmond will win this game. I think even with their, I guess, bad run of form, 3 losses in a row, and I think it will just be that end of an era type game for Revolt. I think he kicks 4 or 5 in this game, to be honest, as he goes out. And I just don't think North have really the defence to be able to cope with him as much, but obviously he could turn around and kick 0, given that he's sort of in the latter years, obviously retiring in his last game this year. So that could obviously happen, but I do think that you will see Jack Revolt have a game to go out on. Carlton against Gold Coast. I think Carlton will win. I forgot to tip a margin. I'm pretty sure Richmond by. I think they win this game by what is North's last loss? They lost to Essendon. That was a valiant loss, I guess. They lost to Melbourne pretty convincingly, 32 points. They lost to West Coast. They lost to St Kilda. They've been losing games pretty close, but I do think that Richmond will find a way to win by 34 points. I do think North will show some more bite because they have Clarkson in charge, but I don't think they'll turn up and win. Carlton, I think, will win their game, and they'll win it by, against Gold Coast, they'll probably thump them, to be honest. So I'm going to say Carlton by 42 points. Because you have like Cripper, you also have Kerner and stuff that are firing at the moment, and if Kerner has another big bag, he pretty much wraps up the Coleman, it looks like. So there's that. You've got GWS against Essendon, and I think GWS win this to keep their season alive. Essendon obviously are ahead of them on the ladder, but Essendon, I think GWS have a better chance of going through, to be honest. I don't know who Essendon plays in the final round, who they play. Essendon play in the final round Collingwood, which I don't think they have a chance of pretty much winning that, and GWS have the most informed team in the comp, so I think they're both pretty much cooked anyway, but I think they'll both lose their last game, which pretty much leaves only if the Swans win this week, and obviously GWS and Essendon could easily catch them again because, Essendon wouldn't, or GWS, whoever loses, wouldn't. But, and if they draw, that pretty much puts the Swans in the finals. Geelong could easily lose before, Geelong could lose as well against St Kilda, but I don't think they will. So that would put them still at 42. Adelaide, if they lost, would be against the Swans, would be at 40 still. And then you'd have one of these two at 48, and Western Bulldogs will get a win as well. So Swans will be pretty close to, not confirmed in the finals, but pretty close to be. I think there is a chance if the Swans beat Adelaide that they will be in the finals before their last game, no matter the result against Melbourne. But the Swans just need to win against Adelaide. We knew this about, I think it was like 7 or 8 weeks ago, that it was going to come down to Swans needing to win that run of games and then also win 1 or 2 of their last their games against Melbourne. It looked like at the start of the season that it was going to be 2, or that start of that run, that it was going to be needing to them win out their last 7. So you've got Geelong in this game. I think Geelong will win. I forgot to again tip GWS. Their margin, I guess, against GWS. The GWS Essendon game, I think GWS wins by 30 odd points. Then you've got Geelong. I believe they'll win against St Kilda by 15 points. I just think that I think Dangerfield will provide too much of a threat. Then you've got the Adelaide Swans game, and Adelaide are favourites against the Swans, obviously because they put up a good performance against Brisbane, and then they also put up a good performance against Gold Coast, beat Port, narrowly lost to Melbourne, and narrowly lost to Giants. I think the Swans, I'm going to still tip them because I think they're in form at the moment, and I think if they can just run even with the ball use, as in getting enough use in the getting enough clearances to basically break it even, their ball use from defensive 50 to forward 50 will be enough. And so, yeah, I think they can win this game, and hopefully they do. I think they'll win a tight one by 14 points. Then we move on to the the Sunday games. And obviously Western Bulldogs will win this game, and they'll win it by, I think they'll win it by like 60 points, to be honest with you. Then you've got the Melbourne Hawthorn game, and I think Melbourne will win this game against the Hawks, and I think they'll win it by 10 points, just because I think Hawks will put up a massive challenge, as they lost to St Kilda, but it was in the last quarter, I'm pretty sure. Or no, they got off to a fast start, St Kilda, and were up by like 40 points, so it was the whole game that they're up, and Hawthorn started to reel them in. If you look at the game against Richmond, a really tight game that Hawthorn should have probably won, and against North, they obviously won. So they've won 7 games this year out of 21, is it, or something? I think it's 21, so they're 7-14 and could easily be 8, 9, or 10. 10 and 11, and they're right there. So I don't think they're that bad, Hawthorn, but I do think that that's the likes of Melbourne will run out victors in this game. Then you got Port versus Freo, and I think Port will win the game and end Freo's hopes finally, as I think Port will win by 14, why did I say 14 points? I think they'll win actually bigger than that, even though Freo won their last game against, obviously, West Coast, so you're going to win that game. Freo barely lost to Brisbane, barely beat Geelong, which is a good win, lost to the Swans pretty convincingly, and lost to Collingwood. Port do have ruck department issues, so I'm going to say Port by 21 points, as I just think their midfield will do a lot better. I think their midfield's a little bit more connected, so I think Port will win that game. And those are the tips for the round. So if I go back to there we go. That's the tips, and I'll see you guys in another video. Thanks, guys. Goodbye.